This episode of We Are Libertarians is brought to you by Audible.com. Enjoy one free audiobook courtesy of We Are Libertarians. Choose from more than 100,000 audiobook titles, including works by Ron Paul, Walter Block, Murray Rothbard, and the Cato Institute. Audible.com also has audio of radio and TV programs and audio versions of magazines and newspapers. You can get the Audible app on any mobile device or download the audio to your computer. Go to audibletrial.com/WAL or head to WeareLibertarians.com and find the link to get one free month of Audible today. Welcome to We Are Libertarians for this week. I am your host, Chris Spangle. With me is Creighton Harrington. Creighton, how are you doing?
Doing good.
always overexcited at the beginning of every podcast. Greg is in New York City, probably plotting to blow up bridges or something terroristic. So,
sorry, Greg, for when you get arrested.
So the NSA, we know you listen. Make sure you look up Greg Lynn's Social Security number 308. I don't know.
I think we found out Spangle's first three digits of his Social Security number.
No, that's not it. One off. Come at me, bro. And Joe Ruiz and the boss of the family, Mickey, is they're on their way. They should be here at some point, I imagine. They're coming back from Florida up to South Bend, and I live right off of the interstate that they're driving up. So they're driving by at the point when we're podcasting. So,
have you ever had to make that drive from here to Florida?
Oh yeah, all the time as a kid.
Yeah.
My grandparents live in St. Augustine, Florida, and so we actually had a condo there as kids.
Yeah, we had a trailer down in a little bitty town called Moorhaven.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's honestly, I asked my parents growing up, like, how did my grandpa even find this place? Because it was like my great grandpa's camper. And I was like, it was just like, how did you even find this town? It's so small. It's like not close to any major freeways. It's just out in the middle. Like, you had to go into like farmland side roads for like 3 hours before you even got to the town.
Yeah.
And like, we went to this town every year for spring break. It was like an hour or two. It was probably about 2 hours from Fort Myers.
So definitely a spring break destination, right?
But like, it turns out it's like back before they built the highways, it was off the main road that you got to Miami. So that's how he found out. That's how old this town
So you go to
was.
spring break there, and it's you and 14 deadbeat dads, a few old people.
Yeah, it's me and my mom and dad and my sister and my grandpa. We went a lot of fishing, good fishing.
See, we always, like I said, we went to St. Augustine a couple times a year, and I love it, and I really think that's where I developed my love of history. But not necessarily Daytona or Panama City or, a known destination for spring breaking.
Which is good when you're little. I mean,
yeah.
When you're young.
When I was 17, I could have stood to see some naked floozies. I mean, just being honest.
But
be honest now.
But that drive, man, 18 hours. We made that many a times without even stopping for hotels or anything.
I think it's like 14 to St. Augustine, which is just south of Jacksonville, between Jacksonville and Daytona. Right on the beach. So yeah, I've driven, you do the whole thing where you drive down, you stop between Cartersburg and south of Atlanta, and have the hotel. Maybe you stop early in Chattanooga.
Yeah, so we've done that before.
Get
so
a
sometimes
spot with a pool.
A couple times we made it all the way through. We'd get up at like 2, get out of there by like 3, and get to the place by like 9.
Right.
And then, but those were a good year. Most of the time, we'd have to stop in like Tennessee or something to sleep, and then we'd continue.
We'd make our ceremonial stop in Valdosta, Georgia, at.
Isn't Georgia the worst state to drive through?
It's the longest.
It's like 3 hours of grueling agony, and then Atlanta, we're in Atlanta, and then 3 more hours of grueling agony.
I know, you go from Indianapolis, where we're at, all the way down to Nashville in like half a tank of gas in no time at all. And then you get to Chattanooga, and you're like, oh, we're almost to Georgia. This is great. And then you get to Georgia, and you're there forever. And then you make it to Valdosta, and we'd always stop because my dad loves Crystal, which is like White Castle with mustard.
Yeah.
And so we'd always stop at Crystal, and then we'd always immediately regret it because everybody'd have horrible gas the rest of the trip, mostly him. And as soon as somebody, especially him, would rip, he'd hold the windows so you couldn't roll the windows down. It was awful. So... Yeah. I think it was part of his plan.
And the worst part about it is once you get through Georgia, you finally get to Florida, like Moorhaven's way down by Miami. You know, it's probably 2 or 3 hours just northwest of Miami. It's right off of Lake Okeechobee, so it's way down. It's deep Florida. So when you think about it, like you're going down, and you're like, all right, we're in Florida, we're almost there, and you're like, nope, you got another 5 hours about where you're there.
Yeah, Georgia was the worst, but I'd say Florida was probably the worst because you're still 2 hours away from St. Augustine, and you're just like, as little kids, you're like, are we there yet? We're in Florida, you know, and your parents are like, no, we still have to drive within Florida. You're like, no, this is Florida. When are we there? I want to run on the beach. So we are gathering together today to commemorate a happening. I don't know if it's the happening, but it might be in Creighton's life. Something that we've known since basically 2009 has happened. Rand Paul has announced his presidency for the campaign.
And Liberty died, apparently.
How turgid is your Rand boner at this point?
You know, you guys and your jokes, all right?
I know. The funny thing about the Facebook page is, you know, we've got 3,000 listeners to this podcast, and we've got 8,000 Facebook fans, friends, whatever. And so there's a wide gulf of people that don't listen to this podcast. And we're not saying that all 3,000 are on the Facebook page or vice versa, whatever. But we posted... we post Creighton memes on there, and... nobody gets it because they don't listen to the podcast. Most of the Facebook,
yeah. You don't get our jokes because you don't listen to the podcast.
Yeah, dicks.
We are a podcast with a Facebook page,
right? I know, and I posted something sarcastically saying, you know, the cop that shot the guy in the back. If he's not convicted, we're going to start the riots because anybody that listens to this podcast knows that we're not the rioting type.
Yeah,
we're lazy. We don't have bullhorns. We're just not that type. And then everybody's like, I can't believe that this Facebook page would go out of its way to say that destroying businesses and properties, it's like...
shut up. Just shut up.
So I think, you know, as much of I'm in a shut up mood and bitching about our Facebook fans, I think Creighton is that way towards most of libertarians, right?
And mostly our Facebook page fans, too. I mean... I know it's probably not good business to insult your own listeners, but
we do here.
All you guys can go to hell. You're all stupid.
All right, so let's kind of dive into the details of the announcement. If you haven't watched the announcement, you can go to wearelibertarians.com. We posted the announcement there, and you can watch the video of it.
Which just as a side note was, you know, like so politically. Like, not for libertarians, but for, like, non-libertarians who were watching it, like, he could not have picked better people to introduce him.
Here's the little blind girl.
like, it was just brilliant.
There was not a soldier on crutches and a black pastor.
Not a single straight, white, normal male.
Normal? Really?
Yeah.
Is that what we're going with?
Yeah.
We're going to get... That's Harrington at wearelibertarians.com. You know... Anytime a white male politician rolls out the diversity brigade, as we'll call them, it feels so contrived.
I think it does to us because we pay attention. Like, we noticed it.
Right.
But, like, I think to, like, a marginal, like, liberal-leaning independent who is kind of like who Rand's trying to get, you know, the one who would vote for Hillary, but maybe you could convince him or her not to. Like, that kind of person is the one that'll see this and be like, "Hey, look, he's got like he's got a black pastor." They're not going to be like, I don't think they're going to be like blatant about it. It may even not even be like conscious, but they're going to notice it. They're going to notice who introduced him, and obviously that's what the reporters and stuff noticed too. Is that you know, he brought out all this diversity brigade, and like, you know, it won't make the biggest difference at all, but it was like very obvious. Like let's just say his announcement was much more polished than Ted Cruz's.
Well, he's been practicing to run for president longer than Ted Cruz. That's for sure. I mean, I think you had a point in chat that was right on. You know, for basically 99% of the people that watch that, they don't care about the blind girl and the black pastor and the Hispanic leader and all the, you know, the Guatemalan folks. They don't care about that. But if it had been all white males, then it would have been, it was just a Klan parade.
Yeah.
You know, so it's one of those things where you do it, you know, it's not going to win you anybody, but it's not going to lose you anybody. So, you know, now listen, we sound like diversity is a bad thing, but
diversity.
I think we're reacting to the thing that everything politicians do is bullshit.
We're politicos, and we're looking at the political aspect of a presidential announcement. We're like
the stupidity of the word optics.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
And it just you go, okay, sigh, whatever. Which obviously they wouldn't stand up for him if they didn't legitimately believe that he would be a good candidate. And you don't attend the announcement, but it just. I don't know. Any time like that's the thing that we focus on. We look at you just go, whatever.
Well, I know. I just brought it up kind of tongue in cheek because I don't care. Right. But the thing is, there's a large portion of people out there who do that are like, political. Mostly, I'd say like the leftist ones are the ones that are probably got little like huffy puffy about it because, who's he to do this? That's our
right.
thing.
Republicans are only supposed to like white people. What is happening?
Yeah.
So let's kind of go through the speech a little bit and break it down a little bit. I'm not going to read it, obviously, if you want to watch it, but I'll hit the highlights here. He begins with the phrase that, to me, my initial reaction to the speech is that it's a fantastic Tea Party speech. It sounded like every Tea Party speech I've ever heard. There were a few little nods to libertarians. Listening to the Glenn Beck Show's reaction, Pat and Stu, his sidekicks, are like the two most conservative, hawkish guys on the show. And they all were like, well, this is the first time I felt comfortable with his foreign policy, which made me go, ugh.
Well, the thing is this is the same freaking speech he's given at CPAC, like the past 3 years. It's like if you're going to be comfortable with this one and not comfortable with any CPAC ones, then you're just not paying attention.
Right, which is probably the case. So he's taking our country back, which that phrase, that's overstated.
That's racist.
And then he starts to strike the Washington machine versus unleash the American dream is the slogan, and talks about the Washington machine gobbling up our freedoms, invading our lives, and taking on special interests and more concerned about their personal welfare than the general welfare. So much more of a populist thing, and kind of grabbing what I read as that Tea Party anger and taking on Ted Cruz for the Tea Party candidate mantle, which is confusing to me because Tea Parties don't win presidential elections. I mean, if anybody,
he's not running. He's running for the primary right now.
Sure.
Which is probably why it wasn't. If he wins the primary, he'll give his, more general public speech.
Yeah, which is really what I'm hoping. I understand strike the populist Tea Party messages in the primary, bring an intellectualism to it that most of the others aren't going to bring. And then once you win the general election, I'm hoping and praying that he moves more libertarian, because I think libertarianism can win general elections, obviously as a libertarian. But you got to give it a chance. And that's sort of the problem with Rand Paul and the Balancing Act, is that nobody really knows exactly where he stands and what he stands for.
I disagree. I think this is something that I've made a point on a million times on this show, is that if you look at what he's done, you look at how he's voted, it's not perfect. I'm not trying to say that he's a perfect libertarian, but it is very libertarian. Like, his voting record is very libertarian. And I think you can look at that and say, this is what I assume he believes, because that's what he's voting.
Sure.
Now, libertarians don't like that he talks to other people. And I mean, it really comes down to, he does not message like his father.
Mm-hmm.
His dad gave the same speech 100 times at 100 different places on the campaign trail, and before it was the same speech. He never changed it for anybody, and there's that's respectable. Rand does, obviously. He messages for his audience. Right. He identifies his audience. He takes the language that he knows will resonate with them, and he frames issues so that they will respect it, or at least they'll listen to it. I mean, and the greatest example is everybody talks about, brings up, he doesn't want to end the drug war. That was, like he said at a Tea Party, or an evangelical gathering last year, I think. He said, I don't want to end the drug war, or something. And it's like, you know what? the drug war is a metaphor for one. So let's get past that and say that, you could technically, be against the government.
Explain that, because that's confusing. The drug war is a metaphor. What do you mean?
Like, the drug war is a metaphor for federal, like, it's the trying to stop people from using drugs. Like, people usually say that when they say the drug war, they mean like federal policy.
Sure.
But a person who is like doesn't necessarily recognize everything like we do as being government policy or not, they don't really notice, they don't make the distinction all the time. They say drug war, they think, the attempt to get people to stop doing drugs. They don't necessarily just mean making it illegal. Like, the little old lady doesn't necessarily just always mean when she's wants to fight in the drug war, she wants to stop people from using drugs, like just in general. I mean, that's a different point aside. My point is that his policy on federal criminalization of drugs is identical to his dad's. He says that the states should make the call. It's a constitutionalist position. His dad was a constitutionalist. Is a federalism position. That is his position, and that is, you can look that up. Now, if he's going to go to a Christian group and say, I think everyone should be able to use drugs.
Right.
He's not going to get a response. They're not even going to listen to what he has to say. If he's not changing his position by saying, I don't want to end the drug war. Because it's like, because me personally, like, let me put it me personally. I don't personally believe that anyone should do coke, ever. I think it's a bad drug. Heroin, I think that's a bad drug. But, I mean, it's the libertarian answer. I don't think the government should be doing anything about it.
Sure.
Now, am I going to go talk to somebody that says that I don't agree with the illegalization, the criminalization of heroin? Am I going to go up to somebody who doesn't like heroin and be like, that should be legal? Like, no, I'm going to be like, I don't think people should use heroin. It's a bad thing, blah, blah, blah. And then I can talk about who is your audience?
Yeah, you're saying not to lead with your chin, and if you want to persuade people, the best way to persuade people is to...
Common ground,
meet them where they're at, and then persuade them over time.
But the thing is like, that's just an example. He does this stuff all the time, and libertarians hate him for it. They absolutely hate him for it. Why? What is wrong with messaging? Oh, well, he's lying. He's playing the political games. Like, you message all the time. You do not talk to your boss the same way you talk to your dad. It's like you adjust your language for your audience. That's all he's doing. He's just doing it as a politician, too. Let's just admit the fact. Libertarians are looking for reasons to not like the guy. They are 100%, they are pulling for every single never give him the benefit of the doubt. His dad got every benefit of the doubt. Find any reason possible. He's a traitor and why do you blah blah blah? No. Let's just move past it. You just don't want to like the guy at all, so you're going to find any reason you can. If Ron had said it, you would have found every reason in the world to say that Ron doesn't do this, doesn't do that. Ron's still a good guy, he's a libertarian, blah. Like, let's just it's a double standard. It's a double standard, and you guys are idiots.
Well, as one of those people, thank you for calling me an idiot, by the way.
You're welcome.
But, I had a strained relationship with Ron. He won me over. He won my vote in the primary in 2008. I certainly like Ron Paul, and I'm a libertarian because of Ron Paul. But there were a lot of times where I was not as vocally, if you listen to the early days of the podcast, I'm like, yeah, Ron Paul, whatever. He's not going to win the nomination, blah, 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 blah. And you and Galt were like, you're an idiot. Ron Paul's awesome. What do you... And I find myself, and I probably will have the same strained relationship with Rand Paul, where it's like, I'm not going to give you the benefit of the doubt because you are in politics. You are a political creature.
That's fine, but at least you're consistent about it. How many people are anti-Rand Paul and don't give him benefit of the doubt, but would seriously jerk off for Ron?
No, there is no doubt, yeah. So I view Rand Paul as a politician, and... he has to earn my vote, and just because, I find it just as annoying, and I'm not saying that you're doing this, but there are people who are just, Rand Paul is a libertarian, and therefore I'm going to do whatever I can to blindly follow him, where a politician, regardless of what they say they believe, or, in Rand Paul's case, says he's not a libertarian. I mean, going back to 2010.
Says he's a libertarian Republican.
Right.
Let's just predicate that in the exact same sentence. He said, I'm not a libertarian. He said, I'm a libertarian Republican. It's the exact same sentence.
I mean, there's quotes of him on the campaign trail running for Senate in 2009, 2010, where he says to Tea Party groups, I'm not a libertarian. Now, whether he meant big L or small L, I don't know, because it was in spoken word, but by his own admission. Now, growing up in the Ron Paul household, and having studied all the things that I'm sure his dad made him study, and by looking at the stances that he takes in not only the speech, but over the course of his career, he may not be an anarcho-capitalist. He may not be as much of a philosophical libertarian as maybe the people that we have on the show, but he definitely is better than Lindsey Graham or...
probably about 99% of the people in Washington, honestly. Like you could probably count all the people that are in the same boat as Rand on like one hand. I mean, Thomas Massey, Justin Amash, Rand Paul, Mike Lee. I mean, Ted Cruz is maybe down in the like 2 floors below, but he's on the same boat maybe.
You might we heard Larry Reed, but Rand Paul is certainly the lesser of all evils. And I think for me, it's kind of like, all right, I have a believability problem. I have a trust problem with Rand Paul. When I watched his speech the other day, I find myself going, I actually trust this Rand Paul. When you watch the speech, you go, this is the stuff that he believes. I don't think he's lying to me. But if you look at the history of what he's going to get charged with the flip-flop stuff, I pulled up, the Rand Paul has his own history of flip-flops on, this is a Meet the Press Act.
Which is fine. And let's be, I mean, like, it doesn't matter because, I mean, you look at somebody like Mitt Romney. And
yeah, let's just go through them real quick. I'll just read them off. Then disagreed with the Civil Rights Act in 2010, now supports Civil Rights Act. Immigration, then proposed undocumented immigrants could have pathway to citizenship. Now opposes amnesty, which that's kind of that's not a flip-flop. That's just different language. Then in 2007 said Iran is not a threat. Now disagrees with that. Obviously, things I said in 2007 are different. Israel proposed a budget in 2011 eliminating foreign aid to Israel. Now he denies ever proposing elimination to foreign aid to Israel, which that's a nuanced argument. He wanted to get rid of all foreign aid, and Israel obviously would be a part of that, but didn't say, I'm going to attack Israel and get rid of just their foreign aid. Vaccines, I don't know why this is on this list, but there is... they're nuanced arguments, but they're certainly... obviously, we know that truth doesn't always have to factor into any of this. It's whatever the media decides. If they call him a flip-flopper, most people are not going to read the article. They're going to read the headline that Rand Paul's a flip-flopper.
Mitt Romney arguably lost, not just because he was a terrible candidate, but also because people didn't think he cared about him. Like the 47% thing was probably the nail in the coffin for him. And he flip-flopped like crazy, but that probably isn't what lost him the election.
Yeah.
So flip-flops, I mean, that's just a Politico argument.
Yeah, but again, we live in a culture where people don't do their homework. Like, we just took a few seconds to scan that article without really going over it deeply and going, okay, let's pick this apart, and really think about the time frame, and you can change your mind over the course of time. So let's hop back into the speech a little bit. So he talks about how nobody thought he could win last time, so there's going to be naysayers. He has a vision for America, part of the return to prosperity, a true economic boom, a return to the Constitution, a return to privacy, opportunity, liberty, and he will not surrender to become a part of the Washington machine. Then he goes on to talk about his time in Guatemala as an ophthalmologist, and I really like this part of the speech where he talked about helping his grandmother, being an eye surgeon, I mean, that was one of the first times that I've actually connected to Rand Paul on a human level, because I always have, he does have a little bit of, obviously he's his father's son, and he has a little bit of that nerdy intellectual thing that his dad had, and doesn't always hit you where Ted Cruz excels or Mike Huckabee excels, which is that human aspect. So I thought that was a really good portion of the speech. Obviously, you've followed Rand a lot closer and have met him and seen more speeches of his. I mean, does he tend to connect with audiences on an emotional level, and I've just not seen enough of it? Or, now obviously, maybe you were seeing him speak to other libertarians, so...
Yeah,
that's always inspiring.
I mostly, I don't go to, like, Tea Party events or anything like that to see, but, like... Yeah, he does well. I mean, it depends on how authentic you think it is, but like like I said, he connects. He tries to build common ground with his audience. I mean, Ron did a good job at like Christian events. He would,
Sure.
doing like bringing up people like thought he was the most authentic. I forget which one, the Valley Voter Summer or something.
Mm-hmm.
He won that straw poll or something, right?
Yeah, because Ron Paul, especially in his presidential runs, especially 2012, was just too old to give a crap.
Yeah.
And I can tell you, at 31, I'm finally there. I just don't care at all about how... I can't imagine what I'm going to be like at 80, like Ron Paul. Like, we'll be so much more crotchety than Ron Paul. Rand does seem to care, based on his history of messaging, right or wrong. Obviously, coming from a political background, I think you're totally right. You have to tailor your message. But Rand doesn't want to take those stands that are going to alienate an audience, where Ron, you have to pick and choose what audience you're going to put him in front of.
Yeah.
If you're managing his campaign, you're not going to send him to the Huckabee rallies.
Yeah, and there were times where he knew like he wasn't completely unable to like talk to an audience.
Right.
Like the Valley Voter Summit, bring up the story of the judges, Samuel or whatever, and how that's why that's his libertarian Bible story,
sure,
and all that. But like Rand is obviously much more astute when it comes to all that.
Well, he's also, a little more willing to connect to the audience, a little less curmudgeon-y. Yeah. And so he goes on to talk about what kind of America will our grandchildren see. Both parties and the entire political system are to blame for a collapsing economy. Republicans and Democrats have doubled debt. It's tripled under Obama, more than all the other presidents combined. We're borrowing $1 million a minute. And it threatens not our economy, but also our security. Yeah, that's just Sally Mae. She can go away. So he's got a message of liberty, opportunity, and justice for all Americans, whether you wear a suit, uniform, or overalls, but whether you're white, black, rich, or poor.
Which let's be clear, Rand Paul is the most interesting man in politics, as everyone says, because he is out there doing the outreach to minority communities. When that is code for him being outreaching to minority communities. I mean, even someone like, Obama even notices this, and he doesn't necessarily obviously agree with anything that Rand Paul says, but he recognizes that Rand Paul is doing this, which is a big deal, because, I mean, from my perception, from what I've seen, Rand Paul scares the crap out of the left. Like, scares the crap out of them.
If you've been on Think Progress...
they have nonstop, man. Yeah. Nonstop. He's not a libertarian, blah, 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 blah. Like, Think Progress, like, has no authority to even talk about any of this. But, like, yeah, they are terrified of him. And then I just saw today there was a poll where in Iowa and Colorado, he pulls ahead of Hillary. It's within the margin of error, but it's still ahead. And... they're terrified of Rand. He is bridging a gap the Republicans aren't supposed to bridge. He is he reaches out to community, like, because I've said this before. Politically, you don't have to win an entire demographic to win an election. Right? So far, Republicans have gotten by on basically winning older women and all white dudes. Like, that's basically been their electorate for the past 100 years, or maybe since the 60s. Like, maybe it used to be all women. But now the Democrats, they win all the minorities, they win young women, single women particularly, So that's if a Republican is able to keep who they've had and add to that even a little bit of like the black vote or the Hispanic vote, doesn't have to be a large percentage. It just has to be a little bit. Then it's not even a close election. Republican blows everyone out of the water.
Sure.
And that's what Rand, I think, is banking. I mean, don't get me wrong. I think that he authentically believes this kind of stuff.
Sure.
I don't think he's just reaching out to black community because he thinks that it'll win him an election. I'm sure that he understands it's going to be a great side effect. And
Howard, speaking at Howard University, most Republican politicians aren't going to go out and reach out to that community, a historically black college. They're not going to
Ferguson.
They're not going to want the pictures of picket lines of them them going to a college and having demonstrations against their candidacy or their personhood.
Yeah.
So he does get bonus points in my book for making those efforts and trying to take a libertarian Republican message to those communities.
Which is exactly an argument that libertarians have been making forever, is that libertarianism is this solution to all of these things that Republicans and Democrats whine and cry about all the time. Like Democrats complain, they say that, the solution to all of this poverty or all of this, the institutional racism is more government. And libertarians are like, no, government is the cause of all this stuff. The solution is to get rid of it. And then you have a guy like Rand Paul, who is libertarian and who's out there actually doing what libertarians have said forever. This is the solution to all of these problems. And it's resonating. It's resonating amongst people. It's resonating amongst... And it's so early. We got so long before the campaign really even kicks up.
Right.
Hillary's not even technically officially in the race yet.
Sure.
So there's even right now, like even with the work he's done as a senator, you can already see kind of some of the benefits of like all of that outreach efforts and how it does resonate with people. So you do have somebody who's taking a libertarian message and taking it out there. And this kind of is a good segue into like the major...
Well, yeah, and you look at his work on drug issues and legalization issues with Cory Booker and Gillibrand of New York.
And mandatory minimums and all that.
Yeah, I mean, those are issues that Republicans, the law and order Republicans from Texas, are not going to go and fight or propose laws or sign on to Democratic bills that may make them look like they're less tough on crime.
Yeah. I mean, that's all left over from Nixon for sure. But I think this is a good segue. Like, if I can remember my point now, Chris.
What were we talking about? We were talking about him connecting on a human level.
God, I completely lost it.
Well, I will carry on then, and you will loudly interrupt me as soon as you remember it, I'm sure. So he goes on to say that Republicans can't nominate Democrat light, a slight jab at, I'm sure, a Jeb Bush or a Mitt Romney type, whom he endorsed.
You know what? Whatever. Like, seriously, how many times? Look at how he votes. He doesn't vote anywhere near Mitt Romney. Like, let's be honest. It's like a freaking it's a messaging thing.
Oh,
it's like, give me a break.
I hit you right.
Is Ron okay? Ron was at Rand's announcement. Ron must be a sellout. Ron has sold his soul.
No.
Ron has sold his soul.
No.
He's at Rand Paul's announcement. You don't go to Rand Paul's announcement if you don't support him, or you're not the media.
Here's why you're wrong, Creighton. He didn't speak. He didn't give up a speech. He didn't endorse him. He clearly is not for his son. He's waiting till a real libertarian candidate gets in the race.
Yeah, my ass. Who's that going to... Oh, and by the way, libertarian community, listen to me. Who's that going to be? Like, who is the libertarian candidate going to be? Is it going to be Gary Johnson?
Yeah?
No, it won't, because Gary Johnson's terrible in foreign policy. He's not libertarian enough.
That by most standards of criticism from the libertarian anarcho-capitalist group, you're right.
He won't win. Like, don't get me wrong. Gary Johnson is better than 90% of the people out there. Don't get me wrong. But he's also not going to win. And he's not going to... And listen, this is my point. I remembered my point.
But...
No, don't interrupt me.
No.
I remembered my point. I remembered my point.
You're not going to talk about Gary Johnson and get away with it.
I'm not done. I remember my point. This is the primary reason that Rand Paul running for president is big. It's not just because... It's not like any... And this is something that ANCAPs can take to heart. No person who supports Rand Paul thinks that Rand Paul getting elected president is going to suddenly smash the state. Thinks that it's going to suddenly bring about the libertarian utopia. No one thinks that.
He'd have to be a brutal libertarian dictator passing nothing but executive orders betraying the Constitution to do it.
What Rand Paul's campaign is going to be is the biggest microphone that libertarianism has ever had. Bigger than Ron's, because Rand is taken seriously. Ron wasn't. Ron got plenty of people into the boat. Don't get me wrong. He spread the message better than anyone before. But Rand is going to have that same ability because people perceive him as libertarian. You know, whether or not you do, ANCAP, is irrelevant. Little old lady who is out in the middle of Nebraska does think that he's a libertarian. Or these are the people who, you know, if we want libertarianism to win, it has to grow. It can't just be us on Facebook arguing all the time.
Why not?
Because that's not how movements are won. It's like, and this is the thing. It's like, at the end of the day, I don't give two flying craps whether or not you think I'm libertarian. I don't care whether or not you're libertarian. I don't give a crap. No one cares that you understand the nuances of Hoppe versus Hayek or Friedman's anarcho-capitalism versus Rothbard's anarcho. No one cares. No one gives a crap. What matters is whether or not people out there are going to be moved towards libertarianism, and they are not going to be by you arguing on Facebook. They're not. Rand Paul getting out there talking about these ideas, it will turn plenty of people away because they won't like them, but it will also bring plenty of people into the boat. It's another opportunity for anyone to say, I am a libertarian. This is what I believe. Rand Paul's out there explaining these ideas. How many people were converted to Ron, not because they necessarily agreed or disagreed or he convinced them or persuaded them because they disagree with his ideas? How many people were converted to libertarianism when Ron ran because it was the first time they ever even heard anyone say that you could have these ideas?
Sure.
It's like you have to be able to get the message out there to the people to hear it. And, you know, there are people out there who are just, they're not going to, he has to go out there and say it, and the presidential campaign is the best opportunity for that. So if you don't support Rand for president because you disagree with him on some fundamental issues, that's freaking fine. I don't care. The problem, one of the main reasons I support him is not because I think he's a perfect candidate. There's no one that's perfect. Mm-hmm. No one ever in the history of libertarianism has stood up to the standards of the libertarian community, period. Not even Rothbard. So there's never going to be the perfect candidate, but there's always going to, this is the guy who's going to be able to get out there and spread the message to all of these different types of people that you will never be able to spread it to. And somebody on the Facebook page said that politics is not the answer, it's education that's the answer. And that's true. There is politics is not going to bring down the government. Don't get me wrong. I'm not the kind of person who says that we're going to go in and be able to put a metaphorical nuke inside of the political system and destroy it from within. However, education does not happen like you think it does.
Right.
Like, how many people who believe that education is the solution to our problems have family members that disagree with them on political issues? How many of you have gotten in arguments at Thanksgiving with your mom or your grandma or your uncle over these issues because they disagree with you politically? If you can't even convince your own family who you love and who love you, then how are you going to convince strangers who you've never met that you're right? And furthermore, how are you even going to be able to reach out to them? Do you have $1 bajillion to spread these ideas to people? Are they going on Facebook Matters? No one cares what you say on Facebook. You're not even getting it out to anybody else on Facebook. And 90% of you probably don't even have the privacy settings to let anyone other than your friends listen to you on Facebook. So this is a fundamental problem.
Listen, you stupid. Abandon all hope now and just support Rand Paul.
No, I'm just saying, I don't care whether or not you support Rand Paul. Many of you probably don't even vote. But to go out there and try and argue that Rand isn't even a step in the right direction, which is a quote from our Facebook page that I experienced yesterday, that he's not even a step in the right direction. You know what? Suck it. You are retarded. You're not moral. You're not more philosophical than me. You're not anything. You're just stupid. All right? You're just stupid. Deal with it. Move on. Better yourself and get something done. Because if you're not going to grow the movement, then you are worthless. You're not an asset. You're not doing anything. You need to just shut up.
We are Libertarians, growing the movement through love and compassion.
My email is harrington@wearelibertarians.com. You can message me on Facebook as well. I will probably accept your friend request. Bring it on. I have had many worse than you, I promise.
Or just go to the Facebook page on this post. I'm sure there will be a lengthy argument. Yeah, and see, we talked about Gary Johnson and why Gary Johnson's candidacy is important on the last podcast. I wouldn't expect you to have listened to that. But we made many of the same points that you're making about Rand Paul, is that Gary Johnson is another alternative in the race that is going to move people more towards libertarianism. And the Libertarian Party is important, and his candidacy is important, because many times the Libertarian Party, let's say Rand Paul doesn't get the nomination, then people are more naturally going to go to a Gary Johnson who's a credible Libertarian Party candidate. And people become libertarians. I myself didn't know what a libertarian was. I'd heard it through Neil Boortz. I had grown up a Republican. I was a diehard Republican for many years, realized that I really was a libertarian. And I didn't fully accept and understand all of the libertarian ideas until I heard Ron Paul in the debates, that national platform. And then I started looking up the Libertarian Party, and I eventually worked for the Libertarian Party, and now I do this. And I have moved more and more away from seeing politics as the solution. But had there not been a Libertarian Party, had there not been a Ron Paul, had there not been a libertarian-leaning candidate, I wouldn't be here. And so if you've been converted by this podcast or anything we've said, then you wouldn't be here. You know, it's a tree, it's an exponential thing.
It's the law of association.
Exactly right. So in that way, I totally see your point, and I definitely see that you're right. I think for many people, if you're going to, whether or not you are, if he's going to get the libertarian mantle, and there's nothing that libertarians can do about it. He already has. And I think a lot of times people just go, all right, libertarians want to meet their candidate. Like, here's the weirdest thing about libertarians working in the Libertarian Party. They don't trust a candidate until they've personally met that candidate and vetted them themselves. Like, it's an arrogance thing when it really comes down to it. You know, Rupert gave us a tremendous voice in the 2012 gubernatorial election and exposure to what the Libertarian Party was to a whole group of people that had never heard of the word libertarian, and he almost didn't get the nomination. We had to take him to every county convention so they could meet Rupert and make sure that he was libertarian enough for that standard bearer. And I think that's kind of what Rand is going through now. And it's just, so I think it's an unrealistic expectation because you can't meet every national candidate.
And let's be honest. Let's be honest, libertarian community. When it comes down to it on the national stage, the libertarian base, the libertarian vote, it's important, but it ain't that important. You know,
I disagree with you. I think if you look at the work that David Bose has done, the self-identified, networked libertarian community, you're 100% right. Every person that knows what Cato and Reason are, every person that votes in the Libertarian Party, that's not a very strong base. But the broad majority,
you're talking about like the libertarian remnant, like
right?
Yes, but that's
144,000.
That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the people who identify as libertarians. Those are the ones that are saying that he needs to do this and do that.
Right.
The libertarian remnant are the ones that I'm talking about that he needs to go out and activate.
Right.
Like, and he's not going to be able to activate them if he's not out there doing it. It's like one of the reasons I support him. But like, you know, the ones that already identify as libertarians, you guys are the ones that are dumb for thinking that you are as important as you think you are, because he doesn't need to speak to you. The libertarian remnant is a remnant. They are something that they're not just going to be. Like, Ron Paul activated a large part of the remnant. You read Tom Woods, it'll be like he activated the remnant. It's something that what's his face from the 20s, Our Enemy the State, Knock talked about this, or it's actually biblical, I think. But like
Revelations.
Yeah. So like Ron Paul activated that to a large extent, but Rand Paul is going to activate that because he's out there promoting these ideas to new audiences. The people who are already libertarian, okay, and like I said, for one, a lot of them don't even vote, so he's not going to talk to you at all. Like, there's no reason for him to even try and talk to you. So if you're mad that he's not talking to you, it's probably because you don't vote. Two, the ones that do vote are either, if they're going to vote for the Libertarian Party, he's not going to talk to you. Like if you are a base Libertarian voter, then you are more than likely going to support Rand Paul. He's not going to waste his time, which is limited, and his resources, which are limited, talking to you. It's just politics 101. If he wants to get, and besides, to win on a national stage, you have to have a broad coalition of people. He's trying to build a coalition of people who are libertarian while being libertarian. He's trying to bring people in and make them understand, like you said, that they actually are libertarian.
Right.
That these Republican base voters, they actually are libertarian, but they're not going to like the word libertarian. So he's going to say, you actually are libertarian by saying, well, you actually are my kind of conservative. You are this, you are that. You can support, mandatory minimum reform and still be conservative. Here's how. He's just using a different word. It's the same freaking thing, and that's why I don't care how he says it. I know that he supports this. He wants to message it as this. You guys get all butthurt that he actually messages it to people who aren't libertarian, and I don't understand it. And there's another thing. I don't think that politics is the only solution to our problems. If anyone's ever actually met me personally, I'm a very political person. I think that politics is a major, very important way to spread these ideas and actually affect social change. But it's not the only way.
Creighton of 3 years ago totally agrees with you. Like, Creighton of 3 years ago could not have cared less about politics. Like, you just did not care about politics. And it's so funny to see your change now to where I was 3 years ago, which is the best way to educate people is through the political means, because people are of a mindset, and I still do believe this to most of a degree. I mean, there's two ways. In the comfort of your own car, your office, your house, via these means, or through the act of politicking. Going out, knocking on doors, going to forums, speaking as a candidate, speaking as an advocate for a candidate, because in both cases, people are ready and willing to accept ideas and messages and think about them and struggle with them and accept your idea or not. And so, if you go to a Mises forum, you are willing and ready to accept an idea, a Bastiat Circle meeting. You're willing and ready to accept ideas, but it is much more difficult to drag your next-door neighbor to a Bastiat Circle event on the history of Austrian economics with Larry Reed. Very intellectually stimulating. We are Libertarians had a great time there, but my neighbor's not going with me. But in election season, my neighbors might say, hey, you're a political guy. I see a sign in your yard. Let me ask you a couple questions.
Yeah.
In my circle of friends, I'm the political friend. Everybody at work is like, so what do you think about this RFRA thing? Because we know you're a libertarian and you probably think differently and you understand this stuff. Politics is a good way for people to accept and wrestle with these ideas.
It's not the only way, and I don't think you're going to find a single political person who's a libertarian and supports Rand Paul that says that. And I think a lot of people who are like anarcho-capitalists, which, by the way, I'm an anarcho-capitalist and I support Rand Paul. It is possible, and I do have a little argument that you guys can have amongst yourselves that say, I'm not going to support the political system because by not voting, I'm not going to put my, okay, so that's an argument that's been had forever. Murray Rothbard disagreed with you, so I'm sure plenty of you knew that. But this is this is my thing. It's like if I was not going to be involved in politics, if I was not going to vote, and by not acting in politics or not voting, I was able to opt out of the state in that regard, then I would completely agree with you. I would agree that getting involved in politics is selling your principles out and putting, you're succumbing to the increase of the state. However, if I choose not to be engaged in politics, if I choose not to vote, I still am part of the state. I still live in a statist society. So it's like my thing is like I am not choosing to increase the state. The state's already there. It's already increasing whether or not I vote. So at least I can try and use that as a means to reduce the state. And that's the same argument we're having right now. The political means of change is a means of change. It's not the only means of change. It maybe isn't even the most powerful means of change. It's a great means of exposure. It definitely is a humongous means of exposure. But totally, technology is a great way to undermine the state. The internet has done wonders for the transparency of government, and so there's that. People talk about agorism. They talk about there's all these various things that you can do to reduce the role of the government and ultimately we can live in this anarcho-capitalist society. But they're not one and only. Like, you can do multiple things. Like, I can believe that there is no need for government, and at the same time support a guy who is currently in government. It's not inconsistent, and if you think so, you really haven't opened your mind to alternative means of thought other than Robert Wenzel or LouRockwell.com, all right? So you need to branch out, and you need to actually admit that where we are in the world, we are not even close to our libertarian society. We're not even close.
Sure.
So we're going to have to use every tool in our toolkit to try and get to that point. And one of those means is the political means of change. It just is.
Sure.
I mean, you don't have to believe me. That's just a fact. All right? So move on. Get over it. And it's like there's some things that are only going to be affected by political means of change. Things like the drug war. Like, the drug war exists because there are laws. Like, you know, the only reason that we have all of this violence because of drugs is because drugs are illegal. Like, the only way to get this is a problem that is completely wrapped in government. The only way to get rid of this problem is to remove those laws. And removing those laws requires people in the government to get rid of those laws. Yes, if we took down the government tomorrow, then there would be no problem with the drug war. But that ain't going to happen. You know it ain't going to happen. It isn't because people like me are out there saying that people should be involved in government. It isn't because it's not because everybody needs to just say, we need to get rid of the government tomorrow. It's because that is the way it is. The reality of the situation is that there are laws. The government exists. There are laws that make drugs illegal. This causes all this crime. The solution, the attainable solution in the present, in reality, is to get people elected, get people into positions of power who believe that the drug war is immoral, is wrong, and get rid of those laws. And that will help solve the problem of drug war, of crime as a result of the drug war, of all these people dying. Like, we didn't really get a chance to talk about it, but the guy who was just shot in South Carolina, not necessarily anything to do with the drug war. You know, he was running from the cop. It was like a traffic stop.
Right.
But like the militarization of police, the forgiveness of the use of force, all that kind of stuff is a product of the drug war. You know, and this guy was getting charged with murder, so that's great. You know, that's a good step forward from the last couple of times this has been in the news. But, like, this is a problem that the solution to that problem is clearly to get rid of laws that make drugs illegal. And to do that, you have to have people putting forth those laws. So,
Sure.
Please.
Yeah, we have long advocated here on Weird Libertarians a multilateral solution and respect for everybody's efforts. If you are a podcaster, if you are a political candidate, if you are an envelope stuffer for a Republican, a Libertarian Party, or hell, even a Democratic Party or a Green Party, you know, as long as you're trying to make America more free and you are trying to move us towards a more libertarian society, good. Gary Johnson's efforts are as appreciated by me as Rand Paul's are. And I think that you've helped me work through a few arguments against Rand Paul. And I'm curious to see where he takes it. I mean, I'm not putting up a Rand Paul sign on my cover photo just yet and giving him my endorsement or anything like that, because it's still too early to tell. I want to see where he takes it. I want to see what he does. And I think Jeffrey Tucker had the most apropos line. I mean, he in 3 sentences, of course, wrote what I had been trying to put into words for a few days. And let me actually just read that, so that way I'm not mangling Jeffrey Tucker's words. This was, of course, on Liberty.me, the social network that Jeffrey Tucker has launched. And if you're not a part of the Liberty.me community, check it out. It was really good. The article from Tucker.Liberty.me is, Will Rand Paul improve Liberty's prospects? Do you think supporting Rand Paul for president is good for Liberty? Here is my incredibly unsatisfying answer. I don't know. Truly, I don't. Neither do you. Why can't we just admit this? And I think for me, it's like, I want to give you a definite yes or no. Rand Paul's going to be as good for libertarianism as Ron Paul. I don't know. Has he been up to this point? I would say so. I mean, he's given people like Creighton something to work for. You know, I would say that has the Rand Paul movement, not the Ron Paul movement, but Rand Paul's existence on the political scene, has that helped you move more towards libertarianism or further away? Or has it done nothing?
Me personally?
You personally.
I mean, like, if you mean intellectually, it really probably hasn't affected me. I mean,
Right.
I mean, everyone who has listened to the show for a long time knows that, like, I'm the guy that read, like, every book.
I know.
So, I mean, a new libertarian necessarily isn't going to, like, I got plenty of, like, my reading list is full. So
Sure.
it's not really going to affect me that way.
But how has the Rand Paul potential and now definite candidacy, what impact has it had on you?
Well, I mean, it's definitely given me something to drive for. I think it's definitely given me something that I feel is going to be effective. I mean, I'm currently in school, so my end goal in my life is, you know, not to be like a political operative my whole life. I want to get out and do stuff and, like, make things, and, you know, like I said, you know, get rid of government control through new technology and things of that nature. But like, at the same time, you know, this is something that's happening right now. It's something that I can have the time to dedicate to. And one of the quote that's driven me my whole life is that if you have the ability to, if there's something wrong and you have the ability to do something, you have the responsibility to do something. And, like, you know, that's kind of been for the past, like, 5 or 6 years, my motive in entire political anything. Like, since I got in the liberty movement. And that's something I say to a lot of these people on the internet right now. Like, if you're not doing anything, like, it's one thing, like, if you just, like you're kind of like me, where you have, like, a very, very full, busy everything, you're doing everything all the time, and then you use some of that extra time to just rant on Facebook. Mm-hmm. That's one thing. Like, you know, that's, like, kind of what it's there for. But, like, if you're not doing anything except arguing on Facebook, you're not bettering yourself, you're not getting yourself to a position where you can affect change, you know, in the real world. Because arguing on Facebook is not educating. We already talked about this. You're not educating anybody when you argue on Facebook. You may be educating, like, you may be able to refine arguments in, like, a comment section when you argue with other libertarians or something. But, like it's very, 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 very unlikely that you're spreading these ideas to new people in a significant, substantial way.
Yeah, what we talked about last week, again, I wouldn't have expected you to listen, Creighton. But we talked about the usefulness and the value of Facebook and political discourse, and it's really not about arguing with the person you're arguing against and changing their mind. It's about the lurkers who might be persuaded by the arguments you're putting forth.
Yeah.
So there is some value in that, but as far as broad reach goes, we're talking 20.
Yeah. I mean, and but like, my point is that if you're not doing anything to make yourself better, to make, you know, your ability to affect change be more substantial, and all you're doing is going on Facebook and basically righteous indignation and telling other people that they're not libertarian enough, that they haven't heard, that I look at this idea that I know about. Look, I traded in my Friedman for some Rothbard, like, you know, little coy little comments like that. Like, you're not doing anything. You are ineffective. You're irrelevant to these ideas. You're irrelevant to the exposure of these ideas, and you're just wasting your time. So stop. Go out and do something meaningful, or shut up, because you're just being annoying. And maybe that's what you're trying to do. Maybe you're just trying to be annoying.
Oh, that is like 90% of what I tried to do.
But, like, if you're not, if you actually want to actually get these ideas move forward, then go out and do something about it. Like, what's stopping you? Do you think that you're doing it by arguing on Facebook? Or are you waiting for your moment to actually go out and start being the change you wish to see in the world? And it's like, come on, man. For real.
Come on, bro.
It's bumming me out, man.
It's really bumming me out. All right, well, you have a doctor's appointment. You had many doctor's appointments. What are you doing?
This is my second.
Proctology, or
no?
Is it an anal
issue,
or
family doctor?
Oh, okay. You look pretty swole.
I came here straight from the gym.
Oh, you look pumped. You look swole.
Yeah, it's hot out.
Mm-hmm. Well, please put your shirt back on. It's not
whatever.
that hot. It's only 75 out. You didn't need to take. This isn't shirts or skins, Creighton. All right. Well, thank you for joining me, Creighton, and we're gonna get with Joe and Greg here in a little bit. Greg again in New York City. Joe's driving up.
Greg's trapped in a cab. How New York could it be?
Yeah, Greg is trapped. He's going to a quote-unquote Hebrew wedding, and he's in a cab on his way to check in at the hotel. This traffic every day would make him suicidal. And it is. New York City traffic. Joe is going to stop by in person, driving by, but plans change.
All right, we'll see you all later.
Bye, bro. Music for We Are Libertarians is provided by Hoosier musician Brian Keith Wallen. Please check out his website, briankeithwallen.com. The song is Bad Spell.